As ever, plenty of questions rolling in on the site, so I'll just jump straight into some of the ones that caught my eye this week, and make sure you keep commenting on the videos because every week I'm going to do these sort of fan questions. But first one in for Connor from Connor Noonan. Grode Hegarty reminds me so much of Dimitar Berbatov. To look at him, he looks so lazy and languid, but he has unbelievable skill and technique for a big man. Yeah, very true. He has got that sort of loping style, and it probably doesn't look like he's going that fast, but I'd say the length of his stride is bigger than most players out there, and I'd say for chasing after him it feels like a fairly horrible task trying to keep into him. But yeah, 1-5 against Watford last weekend. Actually, he's starting to terrorise Watford on a regular basis. We all saw what he did against them last summer at Walsh Park in the Munster Championship. Very true, very languid style. That's a very good observation from Connor Noonan. Are there any other players out there that remind you of other players from other sports? Yeah, there must be plenty of them. I always think of Raheem Sterling and the way he looks like, is it Velma from Scooby-Doo, the way she runs with the hands out like that. But there must be plenty like that. Owen Walsh, he put in a comment saying, I think centre forward has to be the spot for Austin Gleeson, Dara 5 centre back. Yeah, I think that's not probably too far off what I do myself. Dara Fives has been very good at centre back when I've seen him there, especially like I think he has a niggle at the moment. He played there against Cork in the opening round of the league. He played there in an All-Ireland semi-final in 2017, the time Ty de Burka was suspended, and de Burka is of course recovering from a cruciate injury. We may see him in the summer, we may not. Depends on how his recovery is going. But I wouldn't say that Dara Fives would do too badly there at all, especially if he's 100% fit. Austin Gleeson was left out of the 26 against Limerick, and Liam Cahill suggests he needed to get his fitness right, which is kind of an interesting one because he was able to start against Tipperary. It didn't go off injured. He, of course, was sent off before half-time, so there was certainly an element of the Daisha being an experimental outfit against Limerick, but at the same time as the manager sending a message to Gleeson, wasn't going particularly well at number 6. Saw him last year in the league against Dublin at Parnell Park at centre back, and Danny Sutcliffe did a lot of damage off him. I think 2 or 3 years ago he was unbelievable for the under-21s at centre back and drove them to that All-Ireland. But I prefer to see him at wing forward because one of the big values of Gleeson is when he gets the ball deep and runs at you, he can obviously score brilliant points running up the sideline, driving over the bar, up the centre, or he can run right up the middle and create a goal scoring chance for himself or for somebody else. So I think that's something that this Waterford team could definitely do with. Remains to be seen, and especially I'd like to see him on the right wing because just if he gets a yard and he could run away towards the sideline and strike over from distance, he can probably do it the other side too. But I can just picture him scoring from the right hand sideline time after time. And as a puck out option, he's absolutely brilliant. He did that when they were on the road towards, when they were getting semi-finals and All-Ireland finals around 16, 17. So that's the spot I'd put him in. I don't think centre-back is the spot for him just now. I think he'd get his confidence up wing forward too. I think that would work pretty well and put defenders in, defensive-minded players at the back for Watford this year, or a fair few of them. You know, you've got Callum Lyons back there, Conor Prunty. You've got some good players. Kevin Moran for another wing-back spot, and centre-back, like I said, Dara Fives. So I think that releases you to put Gleeson a little bit further up the field, and you know you're going to have Jamie Barr in midfield. It'd be nice to have him kind of setting up play and releasing Gleeson. So that's definitely where I'd look at playing him. Mega Man came in with a comment saying, no mention in the media of Paul Conroy's performance versus Meath. Came on after 27 minutes, 3 points from play, 1 point from a mark, foul for 3 frees and an assist for Steed's goal. The man is playing with an anger. As you say, he played with a bit of ignorance. Great 3 weeks for Galway fans, Tip Mayo and Dublin at home. That's all to come. Yeah, he's definitely one of those players who you can see he has lots of talent. He has the size, he has the ball skills, that sort of stuff. Remember him first coming on the scene, probably somewhere in the full forward line and looking like a really promising player. We've seen him out the field, midfield. Watching him, was it last year or the year before, in the against Kerry at Croke Park. And as far as I was concerned, the game just passed him by. I remember wondering was even the effort levels there in terms of like either he had gassed out during the game or he just wasn't making enough of an effort. I mean, that could be an unfair comment, but I remember watching a couple of times thinking he needs to be able to get around the place a bit more. But maybe under Pádraig Joyce, he's another one of these players who's going to realise his potential, because obviously he has a huge amount of potential, but I definitely think his performances need to shoot up, and if he does, he's going to be a great asset. If not, Galway have a lot of good players there anyway. Richard Good, who was the best player on the Cork team of 04-05, that of course was the All-Ireland double winning team, which was fancied to do the Rebel treble in 2006 until they were stopped by Kilkenny. It's a tough one to nail down, because I was even just going through like the All-Stars they won in those 2 years. So in 2004, Wayne Sherlock, Dermot O'Sullivan, The Rock, Ronan Curran, Sean O'Halpine, Jerry O'Connor, Niall McCarthy, Brian Corcoran, they all won them in 04. Then 05, Pat Mulcahy, The Rock again, John Gardner, Sean O'Halpine, Jerry O'Connor, Ben O'Connor. Actually, funnily enough, in 2005, of the players from number 9 on, Ben O'Connor was the only one to win an All-Star. Jerry O'Connor won Hurler of the Year, so obviously the twins winning their All-Stars there. Just a really tough one to call, because like, if The Rock is getting him 2 years in a row, he's obviously doing an awful lot right. And same with Sean Og. And Jerry O'Connor's getting Hurler of the Year in 2005. So he's in the conversation. I'd struggle to call this one. Possibly by virtue, maybe by virtue of getting the Hurler of the Year in 2005. I might just give it to Jerry O'Connor. I'd definitely be curious to hear people's opinion on this. I don't know, is my mind betraying me a little bit? I didn't take enough time maybe to think it over. Sean O'Halpine got All-Stars both years and got Hurler in the Year in 04. And he was so brilliant, such a driving force on the field. Okay, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go with Sean O'Halpine. Please let me know what you think, because I'm willing to be moved on that one. There might be an element of the passage of time and not fully remembering those games the way I want to. So definitely let me know. That's a good question from Richard Good, who actually had a follow-up question. Who do you want in your team tomorrow? David Clifford or the Gooch Cooper? There is a question. In terms of beautiful skills, geez, both of them are absolutely brilliant ball players. In probably different ways, because there's an element of, like, is David Clifford a cross between the way Michael Dara McCauley solos the ball, and it could be going out this way on him and that way on him, and somehow he's holding on to it, yet there's the grace of the way the Gooch does stuff in Clifford too. So he's a combination of that sort of go gadget, extendable arm, plus a bit of class, and can turn any direction and put the ball wherever he wants. With Clifford, he's just a combination of those two things, whereas Gooch just economical side foot finishes, obviously blasts the odd one. I think of that one against for Kerry against Mayo, possibly wearing the blue jersey, blasting into the roof of the net there several years ago, around the start of the 2010s, that sort of decade. Gooch, brilliant in some of those All-Ireland finals, won his 4 All-Irelands, 5th I think, injured that time in 2014. But would you possibly say that Clifford has already delivered against teams at their peak in ways that Gooch was always criticised for not doing? Like, he's played brilliantly in his first round of Super 8s. All-Ireland finals last year, terrorised Dublin at times. I'd say possibly, if I was to pick between the two of them, at this stage of his career already, David Clifford has made such an impact in the game overall. But even just the fact that he's delivered so often against big teams and big games, I'd probably just about give it to Clifford already. Yeah, if you were to ask me tomorrow who would I want, because I think you could build a team around either player, of course. Like, they're both brilliant players, but I just think Clifford, he has, not only does he have class, which Gooch obviously had, and Gooch had that playmaking stuff as well. Maybe he had more playmaking in him than Clifford. But if you were to ask who's going to probably guarantee you damage against every sort of opposition tomorrow, probably go with Clifford. Yeah, and it's so early into his career to be saying that, but he's just delivers every day against big teams. And you know, Gooch was probably in a team that was winning stuff more frequently, whereas this Kerry team in Clifford's first year didn't even come through the Super 8s, and yet he was still playing really well anyway. And then in his second year, he's dominant. So yeah, I'd have to go with Clifford, but let me know what you think on that one. Great question. A comment from Mac on Tipperary losing to Galway. It's a good way to have, and obviously Tipper out of the league now, it's a good way to have Tipperary preparing for a championship, written off, pissed off and grounded. Now do you believe me about the need for a Jerry Kelly type forward to cause havoc in Bonner Maher's absence? So Jerry Kelly, of course, won a club player award at wing forward in the team of the year for the club championship. A guy called Blue Blood came back with a comment suggesting maybe too slow, and Mac said only one way to solve that: have Jerry in the senior setup. Tips snipers will shoot the lights out if you have a nice, loose, lightly contested diagonal ball coming in. If not, if it's a dogfight, question mark, you need Bonner Maher, Dan McCormick and Kelly is another option, especially against physical teams like Limerick and Galway. The purists in Tip don't like forwards who can't make the ball talk. A couple of years back, Tip had a beast of a man in Stephen O'Donnell. Although Mick Ryan didn't cop it, he was the key to stopping Grode McInerney in that 2017 semi-final that Tip lost by a point, missing out on a very winnable final against Waterford. Stephen O'Brien is that footballer who jumped over and back from football to hurling. Very, very good footballer. And definitely looked like he could have made an impact for the hurlers, but probably needed more game time. And there definitely is that whole thing about the Tipperary fans wanting a lad who can make the ball talk, especially in the forward line, that if he doesn't have the requisite skills, that maybe he wouldn't be considered. But I think that's changing to some degree. Seamus Kennedy, I think, is very good and tidy on the ball, but he mightn't be the riskiest looking player in the world. Like he can do all the functional stuffs, but maybe he doesn't have kind of the sweetness of maybe Ronan Maher on the ball or someone like that. So I think it's changing. Jerry Kelly, he's definitely someone who, like, we saw the impact he made against Ballygunner, against Ballyhaven Shamrocks, scoring 7 points, 6 from play, if I remember correctly. Just sort of a tour de force of a performance. And even when he was minor and coming on in that minor team in 2016 for Tipperary, when they won the All-Ireland, even back then the word going around is he wasn't quick enough for inter-county. But that's a fair question. Does every single player on your team have to be lightning fast? I mean, if they're not fast, they have to be able to score. And I mean, Jason Ford wouldn't be absolute lightning. He'd be kind of elusive at times. Bubbles O'Dwyer isn't going to win a 100-metre sprint against some of the other defenders you come up against at inter-county level. But he, of course, has done wonderfully well in All-Ireland finals. I mean, his record is unbelievable. So does Jerry Kelly, for example, it doesn't just have to be a Jerry Kelly, but could someone like him survive at inter-county level? He certainly has the physicality. Did well for Carlow IT also this year. So might be worth a shout, or at least throw him in there, have a look and see what he's like. And obviously I'm from the same town as him, so it's highly convenient for me to say that. But it's a comment that came in and one that kind of tickled me. So please let me know what you think. But I don't see the downside in trying it, because he's definitely a different option to a lot of what's there. I mean, at the moment, Tipperary, the forwards that are probably getting looked at are Jake Morris, who's definitely making an impact. Keane Darcy's getting a chance. Dylan Quirk is getting a chance. And Jerry Kelly might be quite different to them. So it might be interesting to see. Next comment was from Michael Redden. Tip started and finished league the same. Total and utter second half collapses. Against Limerick, excuses, was back from holidays. Galway, fifth game, and it's championship around the corner. No excuses. Definitely fair comment. I would say Liam Sheedy would be very, very unhappy to see the team play as they did in that second half, losing, 3-12 to 6 points or something like that after the break, after being 7 points up, to lose by 8. Not good. Yeah, I definitely think that there's a fair point in that. They would have probably tried to, but maybe it's a case of timing it. Some teams would be up at 100% midway through the league, and that's the way Limerick feel like they are, but maybe they have the depth of panel to do it. Whereas if you start a little bit later, I mean, you do know it's a gamble to hope to get through some games. I would imagine you'd want to get far enough in the league, maybe get a couple extra games, bridge the 70-day gap, 60-day gap for some teams to championship. But you are taking a gamble when you start later. So Tipperary, they would not be at 100%. Maybe they're at 75% or something like that at the moment. And, Galway are probably not at 100% either, but maybe they're at 85%. There's small margins in these things. There's momentum on the day. There's the wind, the crowd behind you, whatever it is. But I would say Tip aren't happy with that, yeah, for sure, because an erratic league, to say the least. Dave O'Brien, plan B for Limerick, Adrian Breen at full forward as a Dowling replacement. Of course, Dowling mightn't Probably wasn't going to start anyway. He's been a really good impact sub the past couple of years. A few people did message in saying that Adrian Breen would be a good option for Limerick at full forward. We haven't seen much of him actually since, we just really haven't seen a whole pile of him. Really good for Na Piarsaigh. Anytime I've seen him, we played against him in the Club All-Irelands, and he was nigh on unstoppable the second day in Portlaoise, and Paul Schutte was moved on to him, and his hamstring went trying to turn on him, or trying to turn with him at one stage, which, and a couple of people have had kind of different opinions on whether Adrian Breen is the right guy to go in there or should be a frontline sort of option. But like, that guy's change of direction is unbelievable. I've rarely seen a guy turn like him. But they have other options like Peter Casey, Seamus Flanagan, Aaron Gallan, obviously, Graham Mulcahy could turn in a sixpence. And there's more. I mean, I'm not sure what the situation is with Pat Ryan. I think Barry Murphy, I'm not sure if he's involved anymore. Adrian McGrath added in, the only player, like, this was the comment about the only player that teams couldn't afford to lose. You know, if you want to win in All-Ireland, what's the player that you can't afford to lose? So he said for Limerick, it's Mike Casey, because Limerick's squad couldn't cope with his loss. Fair point. In 2018, when they won the All-Ireland, I think he was pretty much the only Na Piarsaigh player who got into the starting team that year. Of course, they had the club run to the All-Ireland where we played them, and it went to a replay, which was the 24th of March, so they would have missed out on the vast majority of the league, which of course means that the positions were more or less gone at that stage, and it was really, really telling that the only Na Piarsaigh player to eventually win his position in the team, he might have come in against Tipperary in the first round of the Munster Championship, came on for Seamus Hickey. Someone I'm sure will correct me on that. But yeah, I'm not sure who, especially now with Richie English out. Sean Finn is there, Aaron Costello's there, like Barry Nash has been moved from a half back where he's been favoured a lot recently, and he wore number 2 as the sort of the cornerback that travels with the roaming inside forward. You know, it's generally 2 that will play inside in the square for an opposition, and 1 who's roaming a bit. So yeah, Mike Casey, I think that's a fair point. Sean Finn the same actually, so take your pick between the two of those. A comment from Richard English, which I'd imagine is not the cornerback Richie English from Limerick, but he goes, question for you, Shane, do you think we'll see as much drama on Leinster final round robin day Leinster round robin day this year? I mean, it was unbelievable last year that any of Wexford, Kilkenny, Dublin and Galway could have got through, and of course Galway ended up being the odd ones out after losing to Dublin while it was a draw in the other game. Yeah, you definitely could end up with it. And just to even look at the way the draw works out, I think it's quite unfair on Dublin, to be honest. And I said this before, that they have to start within, the first week. You're looking at playing Kilkenny at home, and then you have to travel to Wexford. So you put everything into the Kilkenny game. If it doesn't happen, you then have to go down to Wexford, who, will feel they're not far off. Let's say they probably feel they're not far off an All-Ireland tilt. So if you lose at home to Kilkenny and then go to Wexford, your season could be more or less over after 2 weeks. So I think that's pretty difficult. I'd say Munster is probably more likely to go down to the very last day, especially because Waterford look like they've improved. Cork, you don't know, but you never know about Cork until it hits the summer, and they beat Limerick last year. So they're probably not going to be all that. I mean, what team is more suited to summer than winter? I mean, I don't think anyone would back Cork to win All-Irelands in a general sense if all All-Irelands took place during the middle of winter/spring. But in the summer, that's the ground that's suited to them most. So Clare look like they've improved. Tip, despite the poor league, shouldn't be too far away. Limerick look awesome. So I think there's a fair chance that maybe Limerick will have themselves, in a good situation heading into the last week, or maybe they'll be through already. But other than that, yeah, Tip, but maybe, especially if they hit the ground running again, find the right balance. But after that, very, very tight. So I think that could be more likely than Leinster, and that is the beauty of it. You can't really call a whole lot in the hurling championship. Richard English also messaged, Wexford were the last team to win the All-Irelands without a second chance. The back door came in 1997. Yeah, that's fair enough. And the first year, Tip went through the back door to meet Clare and lose again to Clare in that All-Ireland final, the first time at the back door. And then Pádraig Gill, what number fade is that? And do you get a beard trim professionally done, or is that all you? I go to a barber's up the road, and I'd say it's number 1 on the sides and fade her up nicely and tidied up on top. Isn't that what all us Irish lads say? So put in any comments there, and I'll try to get to them again next week. Thanks for watching our game. Don't forget to like and share the videos, and if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe.